G, you alluded to it a second ago, but with P.J. Walker starting, the defense probably has to go into this game thinking they have to be damn near perfect to leave Seattle with a dub. And you've said you've been in many situations like that before, and you kind of just alluded to it. But what is the defensive player's mindset going into a game against a tough opponent, knowing that you're playing without your real QB1?
It's on my. I explain it as a mix of emotions. You're angry, you're tired, you're depressed, you're irritable, and you don't like playing the game. And people say, well, why would you say all of that? Because, just to play the game of football and to play it at a high level, you have to play with a type of energy and effort that you don't care about getting hurt. That's the only thing that matters. You're gonna play through bumps and bruises. We just talked about with Joe Bitonio. He had surgery, came back, scoped his knee, came back because he feels he has to be out there. So when you're not playing with the best quarterback, or you playing with an offense that is hamstrung, you go back and watch any great defense. You could go back and look to the Eagles when they had Reggie White and those guys over there. You can go back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You go back for the '85 Bears. When you start to talk about the defense versus offense, it happens because the defense is so dominant that they are playing so above their heads that after a certain point in time, they're going to start looking at the offense like, hey, man, listen, y'all got to pull y'all's weight, man. We ain't asking for much. Give us some points, man. We just got you a turnover inside the 20-yard line. We kicking field goals on those. Y'all got to be able to punch that in. Hey, we gave you the ball back to be able to come back and do a whole, a drive under 2 minutes. And you guys are going 3 and out. So, for me, I played at OU, and one of the things that always got me is at the time we was playing triple option. And we were the last team besides Army and Navy. I think Air Force was still running the triple option at that time. And so basically we would be playing teams, and we had one of the best defenses, the best defense in the MAC, one of the best defenses that stopping and running the country. But the problem was when you run in triple option on 3rd and 7, like you just want to go up to the coach and be like, you get paid to do this. You do understand that this ain't working. Like you're running that out of ego. Because you can't tell me that you believe that this is going to work against that team. Yeah. You're running it so you could be able to say, hey, we're old school. We run the triple option here. No, that don't lead to nothing. We losing games. And so when you look at the Cleveland Browns, they gave you that effort against the Bengals and a great offense. They gave you that effort against the 49ers and a great offense. How many times can you keep asking them to give you that when they know what they got at quarterback?
It's taxing. It is, and you mentioned the 03 Bucks. I covered that team. I was with that team for 5 years leading up to it, and even though the year they won the Super Bowl, remember John Gruden came in that season, and what he did more than any other thing, aside from being a rah-rah cheerleader that the whole team rallied around, and it was short-lived. His star burned hot there and fast, but the one thing that was always evident during the 4 years I was there when Tony was there was an absolute conflict between the offense and the defense. You could hear it at practice.
Chirping.
The guys would yell, pick it up, score some damn points, keep us on the sidelines for more than 2 minutes. It was real. And I remember they had some pretty vocal guys, including Warren Sapp, on that defense.
Yeah.
And Warren was not one to hold his tongue, nor should he. They're playing, and the message was, boys, we're playing at a Super Bowl level here. You got to give us something. And then John Gruden came in. And John Gruden took that pretty bland and boring offense that was, 10, 12, 14 a game. And he's all of a sudden is throwing the ball all over the yard. He's got Brad Johnson looking like an all-world quarterback. The one thing Gruden could do was get a lot out of his quarterback. Hell, look what he did with Rich Gannon in Oakland. And he was at the end of the string then. And it was incredible to me how these two factions, offense and defense, within the same team, came together once everybody started pulling on the rope.
Yep.
The offense suddenly loved the defense loved the offense. It was kumbaya everywhere, except for Warren and Keyshawn. They never really meshed.
Yeah, they still don't.
And they don't. And they're just two different personalities, and it's probably always going to be that way. But other than that, it meshed. And so I think the point is, and McNuggets, your question is a good one. They're not going to spill it over to the media because I don't think there's a character on the defense like the
Yeah.
Bucs had with Warren.
Yeah.
You know, John Lynch, Rondé
Yeah.
Barber, Derek Brooks, they never aired any of that. But when you would talk to Warren, you could pick up things that he felt in between his comments. And just the way he said things, you're like, oh, he is not happy with the offense.
Well, and also,
it gets old.
Also, that defense had been was more proven than this defense.
Far more proven.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
had
yeah.
been that good for 3 or 4 years.
For a number of years.
And that's
right?
all on Tony Dungy.
And
Tony
the
Dungy
interesting
built
thing,
that
I was just
defense.
looking at Brad Johnson's statistics. What's interesting about Brad Johnson, like I think back in that year, he had a great year, and he did. He went to the Pro Bowl. What's interesting is 4 years earlier, Washington, he had gone to a Pro Bowl also. I hadn't remembered that.
He did have his moments in
But
his
then
career.
the 2 years in between, the Washington Pro Bowl, he had his last year in Washington, then his first year in Tampa, and then the second year in Tampa when they won the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
and he played great. Those 2 years in between, he threw a ton of picks.
A lot of interceptions.
And
I don't remember off the top of my head, but he was not turnover. In my mind, I don't remember him being very turnover prone
that
the year they won it.
6 interceptions.
And I credited that to Gruden.
The year before he had thrown 13. The year after, believe it or not, he threw 20 picks.
Wow.
But that year he threw 6. That was really the main difference. His completion percentage wasn't significantly different.
Right.
His yardage wasn't. It was just he wasn't turning the ball over.
Right,
He
yeah.
threw like 24 touchdowns, 6 picks. I mean, that's a winning combination with a great defense, and they had a great running game.
That's all they needed.
Also, but right now, the Browns are hamstrung offensively, right?
Yeah.
But they found a way, so. But here's the thing about defense. This is interesting to me because I do believe the Browns' defense is excellent. But if I were trying to be contrarian and argue against the Browns' defense, this could be my argument. Burrow was hurt and the weather was terrible.
Yep.
Pittsburgh and Tennessee are awful offensive teams. 49ers, again, weather terrible, bad against the Ravens, bad against the Colts.
Yeah, but the 49ers to me is the outlier in there because the weather was
Not
wasn't
as bad as
ideal.
Cincinnati.
I wouldn't call
Yeah.
it terrible. There was weather, and I
Yeah.
do think it really, really impacted Brock Purdy.
I just think this defense has more to prove.
I agree with
yeah,
that.
yeah.
But you know what? It's kind of like
They're
Miami.
in a
When
tough
you look
spot.
at Miami's offense, and we
Yeah.
were saying all-time great, all-time great, all-time
Right.
great, then they just got punched in the mouth by Philly.
And they didn't play well against Buffalo.
No, they gave a stat that I can't remember now. Maybe you can find it, Mike. Coming into that game, the Dolphins' victories were against teams that had like 6 wins and 25 losses.
They've played nobodies.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
okay, their offense is killing it, but they're doing it against Denver. They're doing it against teams that are not good football teams. Now they've played 2 good football teams. The Bills punched them in the mouth, and the Eagles did too.
Right. And the Browns
so
have beaten 2 good teams.
the Browns defense may be the defensive equivalent to the Dolphins.
Maybe now they've beaten the Bengals, they've beaten the Niners, who are good teams.
And you can't
and
take
the
that
Colts
away.
are not terrible.
But against the Colts,
they didn't play great.
they didn't play great. They played well below average. Even by last year's standards, they looked like
They
last
got the
year's
turnovers,
defense to
so
me.
that part was great.
They did, and they had the splash plays.
Yeah.
Some people would argue if you playing supreme devil's advocate or you just being a hater, they would say you take Myles Garrett off that defense, that's regular.
Well, it was on Sunday.
You better hope he never gets hurt.
Now, I could argue that with most
most
teams.
superstar
Yeah.
teams.
Yeah.
But
Particularly an NFL
But when we
defensive
talk
MVP
about,
caliber
but here's
player.
the thing. When we talk about the all-time great defenses, whether it's the 85 Bears, whether it's the Giants of the 80s, whether it's the Baltimore Ravens, or whether it's the Buccaneers, all those teams had multiple Hall of Famers.
yes,
They did.
Now, it's still early, but as of right now,
I see one.
Myles Garrett's the only guy on a Hall of Is there anybody else on this team
No.
that's on a Hall of Fame
Well,
track right now?
I would say this, though. He's got to do it for a long time, and I'm concerned that he won't be able to because of the concussions. But
Yeah.
Denzel Ward, if he could do this for 12 or 14 years, I don't see why
I don't
not.
think he's a Hall of Fame track.
Well,
I
he's got to
think
do it again. He's only been in the league for what?
I don't
This
think
is
he's
fifth year?
played at a Hall of Fame level
Yeah,
consistently.
he's
played at a really good
I
level,
think he
but not Hall of Fame.
I don't even think he played at a all pro level. I think he's
Not consistently.
He's a Pro Bowler.
Well, last year he was inexplicably bad.
Yeah, I don't. There's nobody on this team that's a Hall of Famer. Or I think if I had to bet today, is anybody on this defense going to be a Hall of Fame? I would bet on Myles Garrett, and that's probably it.
Yeah.
I do have a question for you guys,
And that's fair, Bull.
And maybe y'all answer this question in the chat too, because I got all these conspiracy theories and stuff. But there's one question that I come down to that just does not make sense. and I need a super sleuth or detective to get on this case. Why in the world does it seem like there is it's not even in the cards or a remote possibility to bring in another quarterback? I poked, I prodded.
I'm with you.
There's nothing. Well, it's void. It's empty space.
And if there was some kind of smoke, I think Adam would have heard about it.
Nothing.
And he was just like that. I don't expect that to happen.
Mary Kay, as I said, I had Mary Kay on the podcast. We actually recorded it last night. It'll be out later today. And she, like Jason wrote an article recently about trading for Jacoby Brissett. Mary Kay did the same thing last night. She wrote an article about trading for Jacoby Brissett. It seems to make the most sense of all the options out there. I think if you were going to sign Carson Wentz, and I'm getting to your point, if you were going to sign Carson Wentz or Nick Foles, that would have been something you did 4 weeks ago. Because now if you sign them, they're not ready to go. No. Those guys need some time. Yeah. Whereas Jacoby Brissett's he hasn't played in the game, but he's been ready as any other backup would be.
That goes to G's quote yesterday, leaders are decisive in times of need.
Exactly.
And they have been anything but that.
So to answer your question, like I said to her, you know, it seems like they're not even considering it. And she said, yes, it does seem that way right now. I think they should, and I think they still might. She made the point like she doesn't think it's too late for them to change their mind. Now, we would all argue that this should have happened a while ago.
And guess what? The clock is ticking.
Yes, but we still take it. Better late than never.
You know, in baseball, Bull, the team that makes the trade deadline move in mid-July has beaten everyone to the punch.
That's a crazy.
Because what happens, and you know this, as you get closer and closer to the deadline, more and more teams have urgency, and they start ramping up their offers.
That's right.
So the buying price
goes up
on October 10th is probably going to be less than what it would be for that same player on October 30th.
100%. Yeah, right.
Strike. You know the need is there. You know the need is there.
And if you're talking about Jacoby Brissett, assuming that Washington's willing to trade him, now we don't know that. Maybe they don't want to trade him. Maybe they like having him around Sam Howell. We have no idea. But assuming...
Or maybe they value the fact that he's an insurance policy for Sam Howell.
Exactly.
Because we undervalued that.
Right, but we're looking at them as well. They're out of it, so what do they care about that? If Washington's willing to trade Jacoby Brissett, why would the Browns not do it? Like, I can't think of a single reason not to do it.
That's what I'm asking.
You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me a lot of when everybody in football was saying, why aren't they using Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt at the same time? And it wasn't just us, and it wasn't just local fans. Yeah. You'd watch the games on local and say, man, they've got two horses. You think that maybe we'd see them together at the same time. And we never did. And the media kept asking, and they kept saying, no, we've got a package. But we'd watch and we'd be like, or there'd be this. They were on the field for 5 plays, and the average net on those 5 plays was 11 yards.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it seems to be working. To me, it felt like they were saying, we're the Ivy Leaguers here. We know. You think you don't know, but you don't. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't answer that either. It felt like stubborn digging in, and they never did it.
And it's, to me, I look at this game, and they know what they're up against going to Seattle like that. They know how Seattle's playing ball. My thing is, I hate to think that you're conceding games. Like, have you conceded the fact that it's an uphill battle and you got a 25, 30% chances of winning? When you could have went out and got somebody, and instead of being 4-3, you could be 5-2, looking forward to doing bigger and better things.
Boy, 5-2, what a difference!
With Arizona
coming up next at home,
that's why
you could get to 6-2. When you're 6-2, you're now in the conversation for home field.
Right? Yeah.
When you're 4-3, you're not.
Well,
that's tough to swallow.
There's really no great answer as to why. I would like that question to be asked to Andrew Berry. Andrew Berry spoke a couple of weeks ago. He's not talking right now, obviously. No. But I would love to know his answer. And I know they don't give you any straight answers or anything, but why would you not look to upgrade? There's no metric you could point to where where the Browns quarterbacks as a whole this year have not been the worst in football.
No, they're 32nd in overall quarterback play, no matter where you look.
Yeah, I mean,
and so based on that, all the evidence is very obvious. What they have in that room is not enough.
Yeah.
Yet people that cover this sport for a living and know and would know if there were talks at least underway are saying, yeah, we're not expecting to see that.
Jacoby Brissett played. Listen, I'm not a huge Jacoby guy. I don't know anybody that's a huge.
Better
Jacoby
than what
guy.
we have now.
But Jacoby Brissett in 11 games last year threw 6 picks, right? Isn't that the number?
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
Okay. P.J. Walker and DTR have thrown 6 picks in 3 games. And it really could have been like 8 or 9 between them, the way they've thrown the ball.
Yeah, you're right. It could have been
I
more.
mean, you can't. The fact that they
Now, Jacoby played 11 games, didn't play the whole season, but still, 11 games to have only 6 picks.
11
You
versus
can live
3.
with this defense.
Yeah.
That's what drives me mad is we had decent backup quarterback play last year, but a terrible defense. And this year we've got a great defense and terrible backup quarterback play. Can't we get them together?
Right. And the way you won against Indianapolis is unsustainable. They won a game where the defense played poorly and the quarterback was awful.
They're not winning games
if
like
I
that.
tell you your quarterback's going to be awful and your defense is going to be awful, you're going to lose 99 out of 100 times.
What the X factor was, it was one of the all-time great individual performances by one guy on the defense
and the
who
kicker.
saved the day. And the kicker.
The kicker and the defense.
Outside of that, that's an L. 98% of the time when you give up 38 points and your quarterback throws 3 interceptions, that's an L.
If the Browns, the reality is, as great as Myles Garrett played, if the Browns have had any kicker that they've had since Phil Dawson, besides this guy,
both those games
they're
are losses.
2-4 right now.
You're right.